One down, one to go. This is the Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is our Arsenal News Show, joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you had a really good weekend. I certainly did. It was helped by the events of such weekend, of course, which we'll be talking about shortly. Good morning to all of you joining us, of course, in the live chat, and, of course, those that are catching up as well later on in the day. But good morning to all of you here, Scouse Gooner and Paul and Barry and Taylor, Arasilki and Carlton, Stephen, Martin, Matt G, Glenn, Alpha, Spearman and John, and Runs with Cows and Answer and NSW and Grantley Poos. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you could just take a brief second out of your day to make sure you've pressed that thumbs up, that like button, and make sure if you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure you're subscribed, because then, of course, you hopefully will never miss out on the show. And even though it's the same time every single day, you can turn that notification bell on to make sure you never miss a show. Before we do get underway, I do want to point you in the direction of a post on the community tab of the channel as well. I was very kindly invited on our good friend Drew. Those that have been long-time listeners to the channel, of course, will be very familiar with Drew's work. But Drew started up a brand new podcast on his own channel with another fantastic host called Sham. I did leave a share to that. I'm going to leave a link to the video in today's video description as well. So make sure that if you haven't given that a watch, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure you do. It would be really appreciated on my end if you could help them out. And as I said, it's going to be in the video description. You might need to refresh the page, but it should definitely be there once you've done that. But good morning to you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate you listening. We're going to be taking some of your questions, of course, taking some of your thoughts and feelings about tomorrow, about today, about yesterday, and all of that stuff. But let's, without further ado, jump into today's stories, and we begin. Where else would we begin? But Arsenal have reached the Champions League final. Their women's team beating Lyon 4-1 in France last night or yesterday afternoon. What an absolutely brilliant achievement. Absolutely stunning. I couldn't quite believe what I was watching. To get the leaders, obviously, we did so early, I think, was of massive, massive boost to the team's confidence. And then to go in at half time, just before that break, getting that goal to give you an ever so slight lead, it would have ruined Lyon's, of course, halftime team talk. It would have brought such a boost to Renée Slegue's kind of halftime team talk herself. And then to go into that second half to just score after just a single minute, to give yourself that buffer. Alessia Russo, a comedy of errors really at the back from Lyon, but Alessia Russo getting onto the end of that chance and just slotting the ball away so comfortably, and then another goal to make it 4-0 on the day. And my goodness me, Arsenal are in dreamland, as I tweeted yesterday, with that fourth goal on the day, hit the back of the net. There was a slight edge of nerves at the end. Lyon scored, with still 10 minutes or so remaining in the game. There was a penalty shout. Beth Mead, I actually think that Arsenal were very lucky to get away with that penalty situation right at the end in added time. It seemed quite obviously a handball from Beth Mead. Maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't, but it just seemed so clear to be a handball, but it wasn't. But remontada in the chat box, people shout. Indeed, we're the only ones who can pull it off, it seems. But an amazing achievement. Arsenal will play Barcelona in the final in Lisbon. That game is taking place on the final day of the Premier League season, or the day before, I think, the final day of the Premier League season, on May 24th. So a great opportunity, of course, an amazing achievement, an amazing moment for Arsenal. And it could be that Arsenal get both of their men's and women's teams to the Champions League final. That in itself would be an amazing achievement for the club. If they can go one step further, of course, that would be an amazing dream. But Arsenal will face Barcelona in the final. Barcelona are very, very good. For those that aren't really familiar with the women's game, there isn't really a example in the men's game. Like, if you look at the Champions League and the men's game this season, all four teams in the Champions League all could have easily won and can easily win this competition. And it wouldn't necessarily be a surprise if any of them did. But in the women's game, as soon as the competition starts, Barcelona are the favourites. Lyon and Chelsea are very close second and third, and Arsenal are around that fourth place as considered kind of favourites for the competition. Wolfsburg, of course, up there as well. PSG have been decent in recent years also, but Lyon and Chelsea are still no match time and time again for Barcelona. Barcelona knocking out a Chelsea team that have walked really WSL this season, and they beat them 8-2 on aggregate. That is that's the monumental challenge. This is a Chelsea side who are unbeaten in the WSL. They could go the season invincible. They've only got a win or avoid defeat in a few more games to do so. But my goodness gracious me, there is a massive challenge, but also a massive, massive opportunity. And, Lyon up until that game yesterday had only conceded 3 goals in the competition. They'd not lost a game at home all season, and Arsenal went there and battered them. So, yeah, there is a great chance for Arsenal in this Champions League final. If you're able to get to Lisbon, try your absolute hardest to get there and support the girls. But, I mean, Renée Slegers, what a job she has done, taking over the job from Jonas Eideval with Arsenal's season looking in absolute ruin. Yes, there's been some disappointments in the FA Cup and, of course, the League Cup as well. But the WSL was kind of gone before she arrived. But getting this to where we are and getting Arsenal into the Champions League final is incredible. First time since 2007, that massively famous 2007 season. Brilliant. Let's hope that Arsenal can pull off another European miracle, because it would be quite the achievement if they were to do it after so long without having reached that final, of course. Right, moving forwards, though, there is more to discuss, and into the men's game. Viktor Gyokeres scored another hat-trick. In fact, he scored 4 goals yesterday. This means he's got 7 goals in his last 2 games now for Sporting, as Arsenal's links to the Swedish international centre-forward have not gone away. They are persisting. But another 4 goals for him. It takes his tally, I believe, from 30 games in the Portuguese league up to 38 for the campaign. An amazing record, of course, and continuing to impress for Sporting. But yeah, it's kind of ridiculous, the number of goals that he is able to score. He's just scoring, and you can see why so many teams will be very keen on trying to sign him and on trying to add him to their ranks moving forwards. But yeah, very, very, very impressive indeed. And whether or not Viktor Gyokeres will end up at Arsenal remains to be seen, but he just continues to score so many goals on such a regular occasion for Sporting. We will have the press conferences today ahead of Arsenal's game against PSG tomorrow. I'm going to be at both of them. Enrique speaking first of all in mid-afternoon at the Emirates Stadium. Both press conferences taking place at the Emirates this afternoon. There is an open training session at the Shobby Royalty Training Centre as well. It's worth being aware to be across that. But yes, Luis Enrique will be facing the press, facing the media. We'll have if you want to see what he's saying or see what he said, we'll have a live press conference blog up on that on the football.london website, giving you as many answers as we can. But also, on top of that, after that, is Mikel Arteta's press conference, which is taking place this evening. It's a weird time to be doing a press conference. We don't usually do, especially when you're at home. We do when you're away in Europe. But in those home evening games, we're used to seeing the press conferences kind of in the middle of the day, but not in this case. It's expected to be a very busy Emirates Stadium. Press capacity is obviously limited, and I was told that I think that some people got even turned away from the Real Madrid press conference at the Arsenal training ground because it was so busy. Obviously, Arsenal's Emirates Stadium press room is a lot larger, but that is what we are expecting from Arteta. So we'll hear about some of the players' situations. We'll get an update on Mikel Merino. We'll get an update on Ben White. We'll get an update, of course, on how some of the players have recovered from the match at the obviously last week against Crystal Palace. We'll probably end up talking about PSG losing to Nice, and I imagine Luis Enrique will be facing questions on that as well. We might even get some of his thoughts, of course, on the women's success of reaching the final as well, and whether that's something of an inspiration to his team moving forwards as well. But absolutely fantastic to see what is going to happen over the next couple of days. Arsenal have really given us something to get excited about at the end of this season. And hopefully we can take it all the way to the final. But it's not going to be easy. PSG are better, in my view, than Real Madrid. Certainly as a team, maybe not as individuals, but as a collective, they've been better than them. And Arsenal have got a much tougher task, of trying to reach the final and knocking out yet another one of Europe's giants. Right, let's go to part 2 of today's show. Your questions, your thoughts on any of the topics we discussed and beyond, right after this. Hello and welcome to part 2 of the show, where we're going to be tackling some of your thoughts, your questions, and more. If you want to get one of those questions in the chat box, make sure you use a capital Q. It helps them stand out. It helps me see them, and it helps me understand who indeed is asking those questions as well. So let's get those thoughts into the chat box, and we'll be tackling as many of them as possible throughout the next 15 to 20 minutes or so. We're going to scroll up in the chat to see some of your reactions, of course, as well. Tizer says, how many of those ticket applications didn't bother with the Real Madrid game but were successful in the PSG ballot? It's interesting, isn't it, Tizer? We saw the stats, of course, come out. We talked about this yesterday. There was way more applicants for the PSG game than there was for Real Madrid. Loads more applications for the PSG game. Of course, we don't know the reasons why people weren't applying who could apply for PSG. People have lives, people have jobs, they have families, they have things that they have going on. Of course, can't always get to games. So we can't always make this assumption that, of course, people haven't bothered to apply for a previous game but are for this one. There's a lot of anger. I think it's a real shame there's so much anger amongst fans. I know everybody wants to get to the game. I know as many people want to go to the game as they can. But some of the awful things I've seen said on social media over the last few days from people that have just been unsuccessful and are, salty about it. I get that. But some of the things that have been said are just plainly horrible. Rich says, hey, Tom, if we win the Champions League twice, where will this year rank in Arsenal's all-time history? I mean, as one club, it's up there with some of the greatest achievements, of course. Winning the quadruple in the women's team is the greatest achievement that we've ever seen, probably in the club's history. And then, of course, you've got the invincible season as well alongside that. Hence, it is now put together as a single piece of art outside the Emirates as well. But if Arsenal were to win both the men's and the women's Champions League this season, that probably would be the greatest club achievement in our history if it was to happen. Cal says, an Arsenal-Barca final is so good for the women's game. 2 trailblazers, of course. I mean, Barcelona in recent years, Barcelona have been to the last 3 of the last 4 Champions League finals, I believe. But before that, we're not, before that, it wasn't. Maybe they've won 3 of the last 4. Maybe that's what it was. But the history of Barcelona, is certainly one where they have themselves grown into the competition. They beat Lyon last season. They beat Wolfsburg the season before that. They were beaten by Lyon the season before that in 21-22. They beat Chelsea the season before that. They were beaten by Lyon the season before that. So Barcelona have been in the last 5 Women's Champions League finals, which is utterly insane, really. Absolutely ridiculous to see so many of them there in those finals. But before that, Barcelona had never reached the Champions League final before that point. They have, in the last 6-7 years, become the team that we have come to expect and call the best women's side in all of the game, of course. Before that, we saw dominance by teams like Frankfurt, Umea, Fortuna. Arsenal, of course, as well, had their own history, losing the Champions League final in 2007 before winning it. Of course, the second one. So it's 2 legs. It used to be 2 legs. I should point that out. The Champions League final used to be 2 legs. They lost the first leg to Umea and then won 1-0 on aggregate in that game. But Arsenal have been to Champions League finals before, winning that 1-0 aggregate game. Frankfurt have dominated things. Potsdam, of course. And if you look at the history of Potsdam now, I was talking about this to somebody at Rene Sleger's press conference the other day, but Potsdam have been a side that were dominant in the women's game and then just fell away. And if you look at where they are now, they're kind of further down the tiers of women's football it's kind of mad, really, how the women's game has changed. But big clubs have invested a lot of money in their women's team. More established teams, of course, in already established European competitions like Barcelona, like Lyon, like Wolfsburg, like Chelsea, like now Manchester City and Manchester United are investing big in the women's game as well. Mike says, are you expecting some sneakiness? Reopen training session, hiding Marino and White from the open training bit. Midfield of Marino not available. Who knows? Who knows, Mike? There's not going to be loads of reporters there, I imagine. A lot of photographers, but not a lot of reporters there because most of them, like me, are going to be at the Emirates this afternoon. So maybe there's an opportunity for some shenanigans. We will wait and see. Vijay says, since Rene took over, we have lost only once against Chelsea in the last minute. Do you think that we have a good chance to win the WSL next season? Oh, without a doubt. Upgrades are definitely going to be needed, and there's some exciting young players coming through like Reed, but Arsenal are going to need more. Kim Little is, yes, on a new deal, but Arsenal, I think, need to look into midfield at adding somebody. Having Van Domselaar back is a big, big boost as well, but they're going to have a look at some of the areas of the team and see if Chloe Kelly could be made permanent. Of course, she's only on loan right now from Man City, so maybe that's something they would look to try and add to the side on a permanent basis. Trevor says, if live miracles happen in both the men's and the women's teams and they beat Barcelona, that must go into the history books. Absolutely. Ashton says the women's team won 3-0 against Madrid. The men's team did too. They lost in the first leg to a top French team and came back to win and then face Barcelona in the final. Could we see a repeat? It is strange how things are as they are. I kind of hope Arsenal don't lose the first leg against PSG. I think Arsenal absolutely need to try and win the home leg. But it goes to show, of course, that you can lose the first leg and then still go away from home and put in an unbelievable performance, So I think that's worth thinking about. Beef Bully says, Tom, who do you think is favourite? I think Barcelona is the favourite in both Champions Leagues, to be fair. I think they have the best record, the best team, the best momentum, the best available group of players. I think Barcelona are the favourites across both competitions. Claire says, didn't Chelsea sell their women's team? Yes, to themselves, kind of weirdly. Look into it. It's weird. It's strange, but it's, I don't necessarily look at Chelsea for doing it. I look at the people who are behind the scenes at, the authorities that sadly have left these loopholes open to allow them to do it. AFC Till I Die says, hi, Tom. I've tried looking at how many penalties Viktor Gyokeres has won himself. I couldn't find out online, and I thought it would be interesting if he's getting those penalties he's scoring. I don't know either the specific number of the penalties that he's had that he has won himself. I honestly don't know. I couldn't tell you how many of them that he has indeed won. He's had plenty of penalties this season, but I know I think someone said to me like 8 or 9 the other day, but I can't get that confirmed. So I don't know is the honest answer. King PGE says, tuned in late, but just wanted to say hi and keep up the great work. Thanks, mate. I'm going to go 17 minutes behind and watch the rest from the start. What a win for the women. Very proud of them. Giorgio says, I think Miles Lewis Skelly step up big time in midfield if he was given the opportunity. Just a shame Calafiori and White aren't fully fit. He has the mindset to perform in big games. Jason says, thoughts on Wrexham coming up to the Championship? 3 promotions in a row. They're living the football sim right now. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they get on in the Championship. It's a massive step from League One to the Championship. It's why you see so many sides kind of go up and down, like Wickham, for example, constantly in a state of yo-yoing from League One to the Championship. So it will be interesting to see if they can establish themselves or maybe even go even further. But they're going to have plenty of investment, that. And they've already got some, they've got players that people will be familiar with, Fletcher and McLean. Of course, people should be aware of these players. I imagine they'll be looking to sign some pretty high-profile names next season as well. Amaro Gooner says, Tom, I've supported Arsenal for 60 years and known the hate that we get in my eyes. It started from the Invincibles. Oh, we've known about the hate Arsenal get every single year, mate. It goes back a very, very long time. So let's hope that Arsenal can really rub it in their faces moving forwards. Tyser says, with Dowman, do you think it is better for him to stay with Arsenal or go out on loan to get some game time? He can't go out on loan next season. He can't go out on loan until he's 17. So he can't next season go out on loan. But eventually maybe a loan will happen. But it might be that he's good enough to break into the Arsenal senior squad already. Next season, pre-season, all of that is a really exciting time for Max Dowman and seeing what he could achieve. Brendan says Brendan Holbeach, says managed to get a ticket for tomorrow. Beyond excited. Is it true the club have a drink promotions before the game? I'm usually at weekend league games because of travel. I usually they do. They usually do if you get in a certain amount of time before kickoff. You can usually get cheaper pints or buy one get one free or something like that. But I'm not 100% sure. So it's worth checking or inquiring or finding out. But I'm not 100% sure. I don't go as a fan, so I don't usually have to inquire or across those types of things. So find out from somebody who knows. Inquire at least. Cameron says, is Moreno going to be fit? We'll find out later on today, mate. Mikel Arteta's press conference, of course, I imagine that is something that he will be asked about. Maximus is not going to lie to him watching Liverpool in the... we don't need to talk about that. But he says, Okonkwo's done so well with Wrexham. Good to see. Agreed. Agreed. Absolutely. Wrexham winning that with Okonkwo. Well, not winning it, but so far coming second with Okonkwo there. Certainly a massive achievement. And, from leaving, Arsenal on a free it doesn't affect him in any way, it seems, and he's gone on to do some brilliant things. Rich says, Tom, many YouTube commentators argue that Gyokeres isn't suited to the Premier League. Is this kind of thing that filters through to the Arsenal board? No, it's not. I can tell you for sure that things that you hear being said online, none of it reaches the club. I mean, they're aware of it, but it doesn't affect how they view business in any way, like those tactical videos you see online, discussions on Sky. No. And I certainly hope that any content creators that feel as though what they're saying has any influence rather arrogantly on the club's decisions, I'm sorry to tell you that it doesn't. It has absolutely no bearing whatsoever. Arthur says, I may have missed it, but what do you think about any Luca? We did talk about it yesterday, Arthur. In short, terrible comments. And I don't blame Ian Wright for not accepting her apology. Mike says, we've been boring Arsenal since the 70s. The hate started in the 1918 when we bought our way into the top league at Spurs' expense. We're still there too. Rich says, we don't need to talk about that. Ashton says, can't believe teams beating Spurs lost the title for 2 years. No, it is funny though, isn't it, how Spurs have been involved in both of those games. Claire says, do people actually think our recruitment team sits and watches YouTube videos when looking to... You'd be amazed, Claire, to be honest. I've had so many people suggesting, I remember when I was talking about like Nuno Tavares not being worth 40 million quid. I remember when that happened and people turned around and basically said, Tom, why are you underselling our players? What you're saying is going to cost us money in the transfer market. Teams aren't going to come and sign Nuno Tavares anymore. Do you remember that? Couldn't believe it. Could not believe the naivety of comments. Thinking, I mean, I'll take it. It's a nice ego boost for me. People thinking that for some reason we have any bearing on, the ability to sell players or the ability to have players be sold for decent figures. I absolutely no chance that we have any kind of bearing on that whatsoever. Jason says, do you think if Man City win the FA Cup final, it would be said that they've had a better season than Arsenal? I mean, if they get Champions League qualification and win the FA Cup, then yes, they have had a better season than Arsenal. Of course they have. I don't think there's much debate about that. Man City, if they finish, third, fourth in the table, but they've won the FA Cup, Arsenal finished second, haven't won anything. Man City have had a better season than us. That Champions League qualification is a big thing alongside winning that trophy. So, yeah, of course, if you said I could swap our season with Man City's of getting top 4 or 5, but it's probably going to be top 4 for them, maybe even top 3, and win the FA Cup, of course I would rather that. Of course I would. I wouldn't take second and nothing over fourth and an FA Cup. I just wouldn't. I don't think that makes any sense. Is Havertz going to play? No, I don't think so. There's been no indication that Havertz will be back for this game. He may be back for the last couple of games of the season, but even that is a bit of a push. Mike says, I would like to see a live with you and Charles. Can you make it happen? I'm sure we can do that one day. I'm sure we can. It's been a while. Has Charles been on here for a live show, one-on-one? I'm not sure he has. I've been on to Charles's show, but I don't know if Charles has been over here. I'm sure it will happen at some point, if he's forgiven me for taking the mick out of him so much for the Real Madrid home game. Maximus says, maybe not the scouts, but the media definitely remember the £25 million Pepe comment. Oh, my goodness me. That story was so funny. That was so funny. So really good memory, that Maximus. For those that aren't aware of this story, myself and a good friend of the show, Bailey Keogh, who used to work with us at FL, we did an opinion piece where we basically wrote about what we think we should get for Nicolas Pepe. And Bailey wrote that we basically should get 25 million, I think it was. And about 5 different news outlets, the Sun, the Mail, decided to write Arsenal ready to accept 25 million. Absolutely crazy. People don't read things. They do not read things before they write. It is mad. Fans do it too. You know, fans don't click on articles. I had the stupidest comment, and I tell you, it is really stupid. You know, that piece I wrote the other day about Odegaard kind of highlighting the kind of the impressive numbers of him this season for us. I had this person tweet me, or actually it was on Blue Sky, which I found even more surprising, saying, I'm unfollowing you for this. You know, why are we giving the energy to those people that think Odegaard's been... It's like it's a piece defending Odegaard. A person who clearly was a very big supporter of Odegaard being critical of the piece. Oh, some people are just mental. Absolutely mental. This is how I film, says, I hadn't seen my work colleague who supports City in ages, and I couldn't wait to take the mick out of him. And his first retort was, hey, if we win the FA Cup, we've had a better season than you. And he's not wrong. So let's just hope that A, they don't win it, and B, we win the Champions League. You know, that would change everything, of course. If Arsenal win the Champions League, they've had the best season of any club. So let's hope that is what transpires. It's not likely. You know, I'm not putting Arsenal down as favourites at all. We're missing so many key players. Our momentum is not there. Our form's not there. Gabriel is out, which is massive for us. Like, I can't stress enough. No natural centre forward, of course, either. Ben White's not fully fit. Odegaard's not been fully fit since coming back from injury. Saka, there's no way he's fully back to it, even though it's great to have him in the squad. If Arsenal win the Champions League this season, it is an unbelievable accolade. An unbelievable achievement if Arsenal can win the Champions League. Brendan says, Tom, what's the last game you went to as a fan? You know what's so sad is I actually don't know, Brendan. I couldn't tell you. I don't know what the last game I went to as a fan was. It was so long ago. I've been to so many matches now working. I cannot think of the last game I went to as a fan. It's been like 4 years. I couldn't, it might be, I was thinking, was it in the Unai Emery era or was it Arsene Wenger's last game? Arsene Wenger's last game is the one I remember. I remember that a lot. But that's not it. I think the last game I went to as a fan... No, I went to the Crystal Palace game when Xhaka walked off the pitch. I'm trying to go back now through my memory of what games I can think of. I remember that. I'm now trying to think if I remember any Arteta era games as a fan. Did I go to any as a fan? I'm sure I must have done. I'm sure I must have. Right at the start of Arteta's tenure, just before I started my job. I'm sure I would have gone to one of those early games, but I couldn't tell you what it was. The last game I genuinely remember was when Xhaka walked off against Crystal Palace. It's the last game I remember going to as a fan. Outside of that, I've been working. So it's I've just been going to every game while working. I mean, I am there as a fan in spirit, you know. Amorogana says, Tom, even working, you're a fan. Can't believe you're not biased. I mean, I definitely am. There's definitely an element of there's always going to be a subconsciousness to it. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, people. Really appreciate your time. Looking forward to today. Plenty of big news stories, press conferences to discuss. I hope you have a fantastic day. Enjoy yourselves. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.